Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the place, the home, the platform to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. Hell, find your most true, authentic voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, get that dream job, meet the person of your dreams, make billions of dollars. We're not 100% certain of the tracking of those last two wishes, but we keep aspiring to get there. But the main thing, what we get to do is we bring people on who walk the walk. Keep watching, liking, viewing, listening, telling all your friends. And folks, you got a good one today. I've got someone who I have known exclusively from the land of LinkedIn. And I am so damn glad that I've got Sam Owens here today. Sam, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, John. I could never say no to the best voice on LinkedIn that I've
Folks,
ever
listen
heard.
to him. He's really credible. So Sam is a brand guy. If you're watching, you can see the colors behind him. Also a brand guy, a career coach, a public speaker, published author, by the way, a fun book that I have gotten to read. Folks, you may already know it. It's the 8 career skills you didn't learn in college, a guide to corporate awesomeness. And as you can tell from that title, Sam is really stiff and forced in his speaking, which is why I love that you are here today. Sam, you are in your home office. What are you getting to do currently, in addition to talking to me today?
Yeah, well, so first of all, thanks, John. One of the things that drew me to you on LinkedIn is sheer enthusiasm. I just always appreciate how you keep going, keep showing the positivity. I get a little mood bump when I watch one of your posts and stuff like that. So I appreciate everything you're doing. I am a brand guy, as you said. I work from a home office most of the time, and some of the times I don't. In the background, for those that can see it, are the slushies that I market. It's called Frazzle. We're in about 27,000 convenience stores across the U.S., and I'm the chief marketing officer of that. But my kind of side passion is career coaching. You mentioned the book that I published before. My next one's coming out in June via HarperCollins. It's called I Hate Job Interviews. So that's the title of the book. It's proven to be pretty relatable for people who are looking for jobs. And the whole book is about how, basically what I've been thinking about lately regarding this side hustle is how do I help people just interview at their absolute best? Because it's not a lifestyle. It's not I'm not a lifestyle guru or anything that. There are things I've learned from 15 plus years in corporate America that work in terms of job interviewing that are learnable, teachable skills. So I wanted to make that as simple as possible for people in this book and just do a step-by-step guide to how they can interview their best.
Why did that matter to you? Welcome back a little bit. Well, it's not why can you, why did you want to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm a glutton for punishment. Anyone who wants to write a book, I tell them, you just have to be a glutton for punishment. It's funny. My first book I wrote, and sometimes it's really hard, John, to know why we do what we do. I guess it's the human connection part and the need to use your skills to feel useful. And for me, it was teaching and training and explaining things in a way that makes sense to people that I feel like I kind of have a knack for. Many things I am not good at. But one thing I've found that I was pretty good at is taking concepts and just explaining them to people in a simple and motivating way. They could kind of grab onto it. And so I did that in my first book. And my first book was great, but I found that people were gravitating to one chapter specific in the first book. And that was, it was one of the skills is called evolving. And it's about resumes and job interviewing, that kind of thing. And so then this next book, I just said, why don't I just blow that, since that's where all the energy was, why don't I just blow that chapter out and just go deep on that so people can really get a step-by-step guide. And so that's how that's kind of how the first book came along and how this first book morphed into a second book that's coming out.
So has it always been, you're a Brigham Young guy, and so it's like, has
Yes.
it always been business for you? I don't mean every facet of your life.
Yeah.
I simply mean, did you know early on that that was the direction you were going to head? And I
Yeah.
mean business, right?
Business. Yeah. Yeah. Like what I'm doing. It's interesting.
Mhm.
I always felt like I would do something in sales and marketing,
Okay.
maybe human resources. I liked the
Mhm.
people aspect of business, the human behavior aspect of it, the
Mhm.
conceptual piece, more than I liked the numbers piece of it.
Okay. Right.
And uh, that said, I knew that if I was going to play in a big way, I needed to get good at the numbers piece
Mhm.
of it. So I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but I also knew where I needed to improve.
Mhm.
My brother, actually, I'm the youngest of six.
Gotcha.
And I think this is actually a good approach. People say, what should I do? I think
Mhm.
one of the ways you figure out what you want to do is you look at people that you admire and you try to figure out what kind of jobs they have and you talk to them about it.
Mhm.
And then you can start to formulate, oh, could I see myself doing that every day?
Mhm.
And then you kind of start to say, okay, and then you work backwards from there. So for example, I remember I went and when I was a young man, I went and watched a doctor. It was like a scouts thing and
Okay.
or a church group or something like that.
Right.
And we had this doctor that we went to church with. Anyway, he took us
Mhm.
in and he did a full knee replacement in front of us with saw bones, fake bones. But he kind of showed us,
Fine.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I was
fake
literally
bones.
bracing back. I'm like, ew.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
No.
All right. All right. Got it.
So
Got it.
and he had us actually do it. He had us actually get the bone saw out and actually do a knee replacement. And there were some kids that were like, "This is the coolest thing ever." The doctor
Sure.
was pumped. I was falling asleep. I was kind of out of it, but I was like, I don't even know. I get what we're doing here, but it just was not interesting to me. And so, dental work, for example, being my hands in tight spaces all day, I just could
Mhm.
not see myself doing it. Now,
Mhm.
my brother, what he did, working with clients, winning them over, evaluating human behavior.
Right.
That was something I could see myself doing. So I
Mhm.
asked him what he did. He went and got an MBA at Brigham Young.
Yeah.
And so I kind of thought to myself, I could see myself moving in that direction. I thought about law for a while,
Mhm.
and my dad's a lawyer. And when I got
Nice.
serious, I called him. I told him. He talked me out of it. He said, "I don't think you want to be a lawyer," which is very common. I understand for lawyers to
Mhm.
to talk other people out of
Right.
being
Right. Right.
lawyers. But he was absolutely right. For my personality,
Mhm.
business was great. The ever changing dynamic of it. I do enjoy the numbers now much more than I did
Mhm.
now that I've learned a lot more. But fundamentally, I think the human conceptual side of it is the part that still keeps me interested on a daily basis. And I think that's one of the reasons why the job interview book
Mhm.
is out, because that lends itself to the human interaction,
Mhm.
behavioral conceptual part of the thing that I like to think about in my brain.
See, I like the fact, so I admire you for a lot of reasons, and one of them is you just explained it, the ability to have a strong sense of what you know, what you like, and what you gravitate toward, and also what you needed to improve and get better upon. You said just a moment ago, "Hey, I appreciate the numbers, far more than I used to." Uh, I just I'm envious in regards to the fact, look, the whole purpose of this show is just to help people get to the finish line, so to speak, faster than I did,
Yeah.
or could. And that it's like, and I bounced through every major at Villanova. I took the
Yeah.
really long, arduous route and tried a lot of things out. I love the fact that you knew that going in. I guess my question then would be,
Yeah.
you had this foundation of what you knew and the behavioral side and all that sort of thing. When did you first put that into practice?
Yeah. I was a communication major.
Right.
So in my undergrad. So I think
Yeah.
selecting my major was the right choice and a
Mhm.
manifestation of those things that I knew.
Mhm.
But then I started, one of the things that I would say is I went and got a job at the school newspaper and started selling newspaper ads,
Okay.
which was something that I knew was going to be somehow in my wheelhouse. So in
Okay.
marketing, I do marketing for consumers, but I still have to go to customers and sell and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And so I just
Yeah.
I knew that would be in my wheelhouse. And funny enough, I had already learned that. I probably put this into practice, not deliberately, but in seventh grade, I started schlepping newspaper subscriptions door to door for
Oh,
someone.
okay.
And so what happens kind of is, I think when you're in college, you can
Mhm,
start leaning on experiences you had in high school and even before.
mhm,
When you think, when did I really enjoy something, and when was I probably one of the best at something?
mhm,
And it can be something in class, it can be something, like a side job. What was the part that I was actually the best at?
mhm.
And I think you can use that as a way to start to frame up.
Right.
The
Mhm,
three circles for me
mhm,
is, as you're evaluating, okay, what direction should I go? Do I really enjoy it, and am I
mhm,
really good at it,
mhm.
and can I make money at it?
Could you say it one more time?
Um,
What I
so do I
enjoy,
really enjoy it?
would really enjoy it.
Am I really good at it?
Mhm.
Those two things typically run together, but not
Yeah.
always, but they
Mhm.
typically do.
Yeah.
And then is there a market for it? Can I make money at it? Right.
Mhm,
If you just have two of the three, if you're really good at something
mhm,
and you really enjoy it, but there's really not a big market for
mhm,
it, then that's just a hobby.
mhm,
You can have a hobby, that's great. If you if you can make money at it and you really enjoy it, but you're not good at it, you're probably not living up to your potential.
mhm,
If you can make money at it and you're really good at it, but you hate it, that is, for me, that would be like accounting, right?
mhm,
Maybe I could get good at it and maybe I can make money, but I'd be miserable, right? And so then you're just kind of like, that's the life too short part.
mhm. Yeah.
Thank goodness for accountants. Some people love it. That's great. But point is, those three things, I think if you can find something that's in the sweet spot of those three
Mhm,
things, I think you're going to be in much better shape. And the other thing, I think that I think sometimes we do our youth a disservice by telling them
mhm,
just to follow their passion and their dreams and stuff like that.
mhm, mhm,
It's kind of like, there's actually a lot of value in grinding through and getting better at something, even if you don't like it, and doing things that I can't remember what the book was that talked about the common denominator of success is doing things that other people don't want to do.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of value in recognizing the trade-offs
Mhm,
that inherently come as part of life with jobs. My job's not perfect, but it provides the right balance for me, and it's a good fit for me. So you have to also recognize work is still work. I mean, I don't subscribe to this notion that you find the right career and you'll never work a day
You'll
in your
never
life.
work a day in your life.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, you
no,
will.
no. It's like, look, people who still don't like Fridays, they wish Fridays were Mondays, I think are just weird. I mean, that's just weird to me. I still think it's okay to enjoy Fridays, even if you have a good job and a job you like. So I think that's just setting the bar way too high. Find a job to where you never feel like you're working a day in your life. It's like,
Well,
okay,
we all would take that job.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah, that's
mean?
called retirement. Yeah, like I don't subscribe to that. That's a Warren Buffett thing, tap dancing to work, whatever. Yeah, I don't
Mhm.
buy it. I
Right.
don't subscribe to that.
So you've seen a lot. I love when you just said earlier, following your passions don't not necessarily, but you've seen a lot. So when you did, and I'm jumping back to like the college part, your communications major,
Yeah,
the mission work, was that a requirement of Brigham Young? Was that it, how like what
yeah,
was the reason? Is it a school requirement?
yeah. Good
Government
question.
requirement? How did it work for you?
Yeah, Brigham Young is sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of
Correct.
which I am a member.
Right. Right.
It is in the church.
Hmm.
It is highly encouraged, even considered a responsibility or a
Hmm.
duty of
Hmm.
young men to serve a mission. Of
Hmm.
course, it's a choice, but it's highly encouraged. Young men or young women are also welcome to go, but it's not as strongly encouraged for
Hmm.
for the young women as the young men. So, as a young man of six, I had four brothers that went on missions.
Right.
Sorry, three brothers that went on missions. There's four
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah.
Um, and I had to make the decision on, whether or not I wanted to go. And through a series of
Hmm.
study and prayer and thoughtful consideration about what I
Hmm.
wanted, I made the decision to go
Okay.
on a mission. And man, what a great decision it was for me. It was a life-changing experience to go out beyond just kind of the conversion to Jesus Christ and all of those
Hmm.
things
Yeah.
internally, to be able to go out and serve other people and to do something for a cause that's bigger than yourself at a young age, I think is a very eye-opening experience.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's that way, and because it's such a challenging experience, I got to learn a new language, you got to, teach people. Because it's such a challenging experience, you come home with a strength and a polish
Mm-hmm.
that enables you to tackle, I think, a lot of academic or professional challenges based on what you learned through that missionary experience.
Two questions. What you're saying as a young man, how old were you?
I was 19, so I went from when I was 19 to 21.
Got it. And
Yeah.
all right, got it. And so what did you see when you were there?
Brazil is a wonderful country with
Mm-hmm.
with wonderful people,
Mm-hmm.
genuine, kind. I think there's actually some elements, maybe it's changed, but there's some elements that I almost envy relative to living in the United States in Brazil. One of those is the sense of community that
Okay.
Brazilians had that may have been a function of less wealth, ironically, that
Mm-hmm.
somehow led to a little bit more community and relying on each other.
Mm-hmm.
I saw intense poverty as
Mm-hmm.
well. We talk about in the United States a poor distribution of wealth. Well, in Brazil, we magnify that by a factor of whatever, 5. I mean,
Right.
I don't know what the percentages are. The top X percent have X percent of the money. It's way worse in Brazil than it is in the
Yeah.
United States.
Yeah.
The middle class is not, not thriving. At least it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't when I was there 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, so I got to see people survive and to a degree thrive even
Mm-hmm.
among really difficult circumstances. And so you come to the US and you see people where I can't have more than one kid. I mean, it's just so expensive. And it's like, well, that's because your kid is in Patagonia garb and goes to private school and has
Mm-hmm.
like everything. So what you're saying is you can't have another kid and maintain your standard
Mm-hmm.
of what
Mm-hmm.
your kid is supposed to be, basically.
Yeah.
I saw, tons of kids who had love in Brazil, loving parents, didn't have much, but they had what they needed.
Okay.
Shelter, food, love,
Mm-hmm.
and that was fine. And so you kind of just get a sense,
Mm-hmm.
more of a global sense of what life is about to a degree, what it
Right.
really means. So that was helpful for me to see, to give me perspective as a young man.
What did you feel when you were there? You took away perspective. You took away the sense of community. You took away, you got able to take the realization that
Yeah.
community matters. What did it feel like when you were going through it? A 2-year stint in something wildly different. I don't know that I could say I relate, and that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. The first part of it was very difficult as you're
Mm,
trying to learn the language, as you're trying to integrate into the culture. I remember times of total depression, you
mm,
know.
mm.
I
Okay.
remember feeling not that I wanted to go home or that I didn't want to stay there. I didn't want to go home either because I wanted to complete my mission.
Right.
But I just wanted to kind of crawl into a ball and cease to exist for a while, just not have the cares of the world
Mm.
beating me down as a young man.
As a 19, 21, 20,
Yeah,
21-year-old kid.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. But um, I came out of it. The
Hmm.
funny thing is, there's a verse in the I'm going to paraphrase, but the
Yeah.
Bible basically where Jesus says, "He that will find himself will lose himself, and he that will lose himself for my sake will find himself." It's kind of the idea.
I
The
gotcha.
idea is kind of like, look, let go
Hmm.
and just serve me, and you'll figure it out. And so there was a breaking point on my mission where I had to decide to be all in, and I'm just kind of,
Mm.
I'm going to serve God and I'm
Hmm.
going to do whatever he wants me to
Hmm.
do, and I'm going to be all in. And
Hmm.
once I made that decision,
Hmm.
it's started to get better. And I left in the end with just a real sense of gratitude for what
Okay.
for what for what I had been through, for what I feel like God had given me, for
Hmm.
a sense of just the blessing that life is, just
Right.
to be alive and breathing
Hmm.
and to experience everything we experience. I mean, I just left with that sense of gratitude.
So it sounds as if it clearly still matters to you, not just the experience, but also the sense like, so I'm not certain how many Church of Latter-day Saints. I
Yeah.
don't know how many
Yeah.
Mormons that I know. So I was going to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
when did you know, or did you always know that that mattered to you?
Yeah. Good question.
Hmm.
Um, I um I think I always knew that it mattered to me. It always was a fundamental part of my life.
Right.
I think there is a level of intensity that ratchets up when you make a decision to go on a mission, because if you're going to be teaching
Hmm.
these things to people,
Hmm.
there is a sense of I need to know some of these things and my own convictions for myself.
Hmm.
Um, so for example, one of the things that our church teaches, which is very different from the broad scale Christianity, is a belief in the Book of Mormon. So
Okay.
that was something that I needed to read and consider and
Hmm.
understand for myself,
Hmm.
and which I did. So I think my mission was very much a solidifying factor in that.
Hmm.
And then I think it's always been there. It's always been part of my culture. It goes back generations in my family.
Oh, okay, cool.
But I think there is a point in every person's life where they kind of decide, all right, I'm in or out. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I believe in this. I'm interested,
Hmm.
and now I'm on the other side of it. I'm actually a I'm actually serving as a bishop in my local congregation, which is like a volunteer type of organization that you're
Right.
asked to do. And my son is 17 and he's looking at going on his mission. And as a bishop, I'm getting him ready to go on his mission. So it's almost like the circle of life here. So
Yeah,
things are,
right. Right.
yeah,
Oh my God. And so you've got a 17-year-old kid getting ready. I am going to be curious as to how you prepare your
yeah.
son. But let me ask something. So it's simply so I don't forget.
Yes, go ahead, go ahead.
Is this that to me the setup, like, do you get do you get pushback if you're speaking in regards to, like, look, this, the focal point of all of this is, like, for me, the business sense, but I want to know, so when you speak, communicate, do you get pushback?
When I speak in general, you mean,
I mean, in regards to speaking of your religious
oh,
foundation, your conviction, when you were speaking of that.
yeah. Do I get pushback?
Yeah.
No, people are very respectful. I am sensitive to it.
Mhm.
There's this I think burden placed on fall of Christians,
Right.
which is that when Christ was on the earth and when he left, he told his people, his followers, to go share the message.
Hmm.
And so people who follow Jesus and who
Hmm.
believe in that,
Hmm.
that he's the son of God, etc., feel and want to follow his teachings,
Hmm.
recognize that's part of one of his
Hmm.
admonitions, is to go share this message. And
Right.
so that is a blessing and a little bit of a burden.
Hmm.
One of my favorite um quotes is from Fiddler on the Roof.
Okay.
Tevye, Jewish,
Yep.
patriarch of his family, says he talks to God a lot throughout the
Hmm.
play.
Hmm.
And after, he's told by the Russians that he and his people have to leave this
Hmm.
this fictional village of Anatevka. He says, Lord, I know we're the chosen people, but once in a while, couldn't you choose someone else? So so there's this sense of it's a blessing, but I do feel an expectation to
Hmm.
to share. I'm not always great about it, but I am. One of the reasons I think I'm hesitant
Hmm.
is that I don't want anyone to feel that discomfort or to feel like I'm pushing something on
Hmm.
them or
Hmm.
to feel like I've invaded
Hmm.
their beliefs or that I think their beliefs are stupid or something like that. And
Right.
so I'm sensitive to it,
Hmm.
but I also feel that obligation
Hmm.
at the same time to
Hmm.
be honest about who I am and what I believe and share the message and stuff like that. And so as a missionary, you
Hmm.
definitely sometimes get pushback. I mean, you'll go knock on a door and they'll say, "Get
Right.
out of here. I don't want to talk to you."
Yeah.
They
Well, I
see the
saw the
name
movie,
tags.
so
Yeah, they say the name tags and they're like, "Oh no, great. Why me? What? Look, I've had a hard day already, and now I have, why me?" Um, but I find that people who know me,
Mhm.
and I can talk freely with them about my beliefs, and I
Yeah.
don't get pushback. But there are
Oh.
people who I think in general feel, there's all sorts of different feelings about
Mhm.
church out there.
Yeah.
But in general, people also recognize that it is a religion, and there's feelings about the Catholic Church, and there's feelings
Mhm.
about the Muslim,
Mhm.
Islam, and there's feelings that
Mhm.
there's lots of feelings out there that
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
feel. about different things.
Mhm.
And but I found most of the time, me being respectful is reciprocated with people being super genuine and good and respectful.
Thank you. One of the things I was thinking of, we were the direction folks that I still will go, but was focusing on Sam's career talk and the
Yeah,
book and interview tips. But I always love a foundation in regards to where does it come from? And so
sure.
to me, one of the things I've learned for myself, and you seem to embody that, like that's that sense of resilience. That's what I was
Mm,
going to say. You saw ridiculous levels of disproportionate poverty.
yeah,
And you also saw community, and you also, like I said, have
yeah.
these great takeaways. I love the fact that you just got to see things. I think one of the things I admire you for all the more is all of this stuff was happening 20 years ago, for God's sake. So now let
Uh-huh.
me ask you,
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
I want to propel a little bit more forward, um, that it's like, so you go into business, you start to head and succeed in a number of what I'm going to say high profile companies,
Hmm.
that in terms of, you're a brand guy, as I started like the conversation, you are, what did you see as you were projecting? So I'm gonna just take a wild guess and think, I even on your LinkedIn profile, I see about 6 or 7 jobs. I'm guessing you've had more than 6 or 7 interviews.
Sure.
So I'm
Sure.
thinking, unless
Sure.
you're that damn good, um,
Yeah, sure. No, I have for sure.
what was
I've been
some
rejected plenty. Yeah.
I'm always curious about the difference in change. Um, I'll share with you my own. I remember my sister Maureen, who, by the way, you've got, I feel like in a high compliment, a lot in common with in regards to, she knew early. She was
Mm,
a communications major. She knew early what she wanted to do and
yeah.
then did it. And so,
Yeah.
and I remember her coaching me for an interview, and I think I was 40 at the time. No, it was in my 30s at the time,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so I was bouncing all around it. And she was like, "Well, what are your strengths?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm a people person." And she's like, "Jesus,
Yeah.
stop." Um,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but I'm going to add that, and I have since, I can't even listen to that, let alone say it again. Where do you think you've changed early on personally in the way that you've interviewed,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
and what you experienced early on as opposed to now?
Yeah. It's so funny
Mhm.
because this notion of a people person, you are a people person, and there are people out
Yeah.
there who have an ability like yourself to connect with others and stuff like
Right.
that.
Mhm.
But somehow the way in which it's manifested or explained
Mhm.
kind of needs to almost take on like a credible way in order for it to
Mhm.
break through or something like that. Because just saying I'm a people person, yeah, like you said, it somehow doesn't work. Anyway, that's
Right.
just a thought that I have. The reason I bring that up is
Mhm.
because when you say I'm a people person,
Mhm.
I know what you mean, and
Right.
I know that's valuable,
Mhm.
but I think there's just a positioning element of it that when you say that to a company, it's like, oh my gosh, what does that even mean?
Well, he's fun at the party.
Yeah, right,
I
yeah,
don't know. He'll be fun at the
yeah,
annual party.
yeah,
Don't know
sure,
how much
sure,
fun he'll be on a day-to-day level, but
yeah. Fun
but
of the
he's a
party,
funster.
entertaining, yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm sorry. Now I digressed. I can't remember your
That's
original
okay.
question.
The question was only this. In your own personal experience, before you were in a position to share what you knew, what did
Yeah.
you learn first in regards to the process? You worked
Oh,
with some
yeah,
high profile companies. How
yeah,
did you navigate early in the interview process? I don't even mean the doing of the job, even
sure,
in the interview process. What was it like as opposed to now?
sure, yeah. I learned one of the motivations for the book is because I learned through trial and error and
Mhm.
rejection.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember interviewing for a job with Nestle when I was
Mhm.
in business school, and I thought,
Mhm.
oh, this is going to be amazing. If I get this internship, I am set.
Mhm.
And I had practiced, a reasonable amount, and I had gotten
Right.
coaching from
Mhm.
people in my business school.
Mhm.
And she asked a few what we call behavioral questions. Tell me about a time when this, tell me about, and I was doing well. And then
Mhm.
she asked me like a scenario based or case question. I completely flopped. She asked something like, all right, you're the new brand manager for Butterfinger and your
Mhm.
sales are down 10%. And
Mhm.
how do you handle, what things do you look at to evaluate and how do you handle that? And it was my response was just a 5-minute series of rambling mumbo jumbo. And I mean, right after that question, she basically was like, yeah, I don't think you're ready. I think
Mhm.
this interview is over, basically, you know?
Mhm.
And so then, and I talk about this in the book, then it was like, well, okay, I now have learned through painful experience
Mhm.
what's holding me back. And so I'm never going to be in a position again
Mhm.
where I'm not prepared for a question like that. I
Okay.
still might not be prepared for other questions that I don't know
Mhm.
about, but I now know that I need to answer a
Mhm.
question like that really well.
Mhm.
And because, sometimes pain is more potent than pleasure. And so after having a couple of those painful experiences, I just was like, I have to figure out if I
Mhm.
want this, I have to figure out how to address this.
Mhm.
And so that's what I did through practice. And now that question, I mean, if someone were to ask me that question, it's like a joy. It's like, oh man, I can't wait to talk about this because
Mhm.
I know how to answer this question.
So if I heard you correctly, you were able to learn that through a tough way of learning, but you were able
Yeah,
to learn the way that you can immerse yourself into a situation.
that's
Uh,
right.
and that's what I really would like to focus on is the sense
Okay.
you do something to me that when I follow you and you talk about myself, and thank you for the kind words, but what I've seen with you, which I just admire, is the ease of which you talk about technical data and preparation. And it
Mm.
never feels preachy, teachy, or dull. And so I think there's a real gift to that. You also, folks, I know Sam through this group LinkedIn thing, and I had this great ability to be able to follow along the journey and the process. The book's damn good too. But what I would say is this: what are some of the things like I get great enjoyment out of your humorous sort of videos.
Uh-huh.
Um, you
Yeah.
got to follow this guy on LinkedIn. You got it. It's not the only place. Read the books, but it's so easy for me. How do people, you get great engagement. So I
Yeah.
guess the question becomes, when did you find your sweet spot in terms of the way that you present?
Yeah. That is a really good question because when anytime anyone is trying to put something out there in the
Yeah,
world, the question is how what's the best way to do it and what's the best way to kind of show
right.
up as yourself. And
Hmm.
for me, I guess I found that the times I'm most effective
Hmm.
with people and getting a point across is
Hmm.
like, late night conversations with my brother or
Hmm. Hmm.
just one-on-one
Yep.
conversations
Hmm.
with friends.
Hmm.
And so my goal in making these videos
Hmm.
was imagining that I'm talking to one person and not the
Hmm.
whole world, not like,
Hmm.
hello, folks, this is
Hmm.
Sam Owens. It's like, no,
Hmm.
hey, let's talk about this. Here's my take. Here's what I don't, and almost like being willing to kind of even backtrack or think
Hmm.
out loud. That's kind of how I have conversations with people. And
Hmm.
and and then yeah, crack a joke once in a while, maybe a little sarcasm.
Hmm.
And so if I can imagine myself just talking, having a conversation with someone, just like you and I are having a
Yeah,
conversation,
yeah, yeah.
I feel like it's more relaxing and I
Mhm.
feel like it's more well received because that's exactly what is happening. In effect, when someone's watching me online, there's not 10 people watching me together. It's one person at a time.
Right.
So if I can have that conversation with people and connect on that level, that's
Mhm.
really rewarding for me. And so that's kind of how I imagine it.
So I also love the fact that there is a real depth.
Hmm.
I never say that word properly, and I always feel like I
Sounds
I
good to
don't know
me.
what he's a voiceover person. You're like, okay. Not a
Yeah,
good one.
good.
But but there's a real like I love the fact that between preparing for 10 hours and 10 powerful stories. That's the question I should have asked. Do you get resistance for that?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like, why do you feel so strongly in regards to being that prepared?
Yeah. So yeah, I think the depth comes through experience, but it also comes, and I'll just say this, I think there is how do I say this? I do feel a responsibility to be totally truthful
Mm-hmm.
people
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I think that comes at a sacrifice in engagement. What I mean by that is like,
Mm-hmm.
I could get on there and complain about companies. Companies need
Sure.
to do that. Companies need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the game I'm in. I'm not trying to change Coca-Cola from, to stop ghosting people,
Right.
I'm trying to help individual
Mm-hmm.
people who are out there, even though sometimes it feels like I'm not trying to help them. I'm trying to help them and say, hey, Coke didn't want to hire you. You need to get more experience.
Mm-hmm.
Or Coke didn't want to hire you because you didn't interview well. You need to
Mm-hmm.
practice.
Yeah.
That's a harder message to give someone,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe it's actually the more helpful message in the long term. So
Yeah.
some people might think that um, I'm saying these things because I don't really care about employees because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like crusading against corporations. It's actually the opposite. I'm
Yeah.
saying these things because I do care and I am
Mm-hmm.
on the side of the employees. And so that's part of the reason, like just as an example, the 10-hour thing.
Yeah.
I don't like preparing for 10 hours. I
Mm-hmm.
certainly wouldn't expect anyone else to like it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I believe you need to do to be the absolute best interviewer of all your competition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you have to be the best interviewer of all your competition because that's who gets the job. And I
Right.
want and I want these people to get the job. And so that's where I think the passion comes from, is a
Mm-hmm.
genuine desire for them to understand the truth,
Mm-hmm.
how it works, so they can successfully operate according to how it works. Now, do I hope Coke eventually, yeah, I'm just using Coke. This is
I
just,
understand, but right.
do I hope Coke stops ghosting people? Sure. Do I hope that companies get better and they don't lay off people for stupid reasons?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that's the most effective way I can help people right now. The most effective way I can help people right now is to say, hey, let's help you be your best.
Mm-hmm.
And that might mean that I tell you, you're not doing enough. You need to do
Right.
better. And you can do better. I know you
Mm-hmm.
can. So that's kind of where the passion, I think, comes from when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to this. It's just a genuine, like I really think it's the most helpful way to approach it.
Look, some might call that tough love. I just think that's a basic kindness. I had once, I remember one person in an interview who was interviewing me.
Yeah.
I remember major radio corporate group. I thought it was my dream job. I loved the final pass of the interview process, meaning the
Yeah.
individual, right?
Yeah.
And I
Uh-huh.
really felt confident. I'll never forget. I was going in there on a Friday afternoon, later on a Friday afternoon, and I really, in my head, foolishly believed, based on nothing. But I mean,
Sure.
I'm getting the job. They're going to make
Yeah.
the offer. And
Yeah.
they didn't.
Uh-huh.
And I remember having this horrible sinking feeling through it.
Yeah.
Remember
Yeah.
you said the person that said to you where it's like, no, I don't think you are ready at this
Yep.
time. And even
Mm-hmm.
worse, you sat in front of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Yep.
so I didn't get it. And here was the rationale that they gave me. And 30 years later, I'm wildly grateful because nobody does this, which is that he
Uh-huh.
simply said to me, look, sometimes you just like somebody better.
Yeah.
And that's the answer. It is
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
answer.
It
I
is
was
the answer.
brokenhearted. I would literally walked out like literally like a marriage ended. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
the
Totally. It's
reason.
hard. It's hard to get rejected from these
Oh,
jobs.
right.
Yeah.
But what I see though is I'm grateful too that I had about 28 years in corporate broadcast ad sales. It is a really cold process.
Uh-huh.
And you
Uh-huh.
do what you are legally required to do.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
much more. So when you
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
that you're talking to individuals, yeah, good luck talking to Coke or blah 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 or you know what I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Yeah.
or whoever,
And getting
or
real
whoever
feedback.
telecom
Yeah.
or media company. It's they don't. So I love what you do there. Talk to me about the 10 power stories.
Yeah. So the power stories are actually the fundamental building block for your interview.
Right.
So when you have a power story is simply a specific example where
Mhm.
you showed that you are a rock star by demonstrating a specific skill.
Mhm.
That's it.
Mhm.
And for example, if you read the job description and it
Mhm.
says we're looking for a strategic thinker and
Mhm.
someone who's got great leadership skills and someone
Right.
who has good analytical ability, you
Mhm.
now know kind of most likely questions that you're going to be asked. You're probably
Right.
going to be asked a leadership question. You're probably
Mhm.
going to be asked a question about your analytical ability. And so you can start to develop power stories that are
Mm-hmm.
very simple. Okay, I did this analysis once for this person, and here's what happened, and here's what the outcome was.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that'd be a good story. So you have these kind of stories that you file away
Mm-hmm.
so that when you're asked questions in the interview, you can draw from them.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing about power stories is they are versatile and they can
Mm-hmm.
be used
Mm-hmm.
in different questions. So
Right.
if I have 10 power stories and someone asks me, can you tell me about a time
Mm-hmm.
when you demonstrated leadership?
Mm-hmm.
Or they say, what do you like as a leader?
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? You can use the same power story for
Mm-hmm.
that, for those two questions. So it's versatile. You can adjust, but those questions really are or those stories rather are foundational. And what you want to think about is what was the situation? What were the actions I,
Mm-hmm.
uniquely took to
Right.
solve the problem? And then what happened as a result, right? That's kind of the rhythm of these power stories that you have. And I think if you come in with 7 to 10,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to be really well prepared to answer to handle a 45-minute job interview,
Yeah.
if you're good at those stories. Now you got to develop them, you got to craft them, and you got to practice them. You got to practice the way you talk about them and how you
Mm-hmm.
how you approach them. Sometimes people think practice makes you feel more rote or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and that like more robotic. My experience is practice actually gives you the flexibility to look like you're more spontaneous when you've practiced it. It allows you to deviate a little bit because you're so comfortable with the material. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so practice is a critical part
Mm-hmm.
of this after you have your stories as well.
So I first, you saw me like beaming, and at the risk of sounding terribly self-serving, it took me forever to learn that the preparation and more free flow. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. How would you suggest, rather than hear a me story, how would you suggest that if someone is trying to practice and do the following, which is I'm trying to retain all of this, the
Yeah.
10 power stories, the knowledge,
Yeah.
the
Uh-huh.
results, what have you. How would you coach somebody to get better at that so that they can communicate the sense of freedom that comes from knowing that? And you're like, practice, practice. How would you suggest somebody
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah, I typically, recommend practicing just out loud to
Hmm.
yourself
Right.
for a little bit, anticipating a question. And then I
Hmm.
would recommend having someone actually ask you questions in a mock interview style.
Hmm.
Whether it's like a coach, job interview coach is going to be your best option
Hmm.
because they've seen it all. Most of the time, they've seen a lot and they can give you the right feedback.
Right.
But the reason I think practicing in a mock interview
Hmm.
simulated style is so helpful is that a lot of times in your mind you're thinking, oh, I got it. I've kind of formulated in my mind and
Hmm.
I got it. But then when someone actually asks you and you have to say it,
Hmm.
you start to realize, oh, I actually kind of rambled at that part, or I
Hmm.
actually, you learn by a little bit of pain. It's like working out, when the muscles rip, then
Hmm.
they can heal. So you kind of realize, oh, yeah, that part actually was uncomfortable for me.
Hmm.
And then when you have a few uncomfortable moments, you work to reduce the discomfort by improving. Like, I don't want to have that uncomfortable moment again.
Right.
And so I'm going to do something about that.
Hmm.
And it's much better to have that uncomfortable moment in a simulated practice scenario than it is
Hmm.
in your actual interview. So I think practicing live with someone is
Hmm.
in a an like a completely, what's the word, invaluable, unavoidable, like absolute requirement if you're really preparing for a serious interview.
How have things changed with so many interviews, key meetings, be key client meetings going virtual? Is there
Yeah.
anything specific as it relates to virtual communicating and practice?
Yeah, there's I have found that it's very similar. The principles completely apply.
Hmm.
And someone says, "Oh, what about virtual?" You see people saying how to thrive in a job interview in a virtual world.
Right.
There's very, very minor differences. One, you just
Hmm.
want to make sure audio lighting is good,
Hmm.
right? Dress, same thing applies.
Right.
But also, I think that the one advantage you have with virtual is you
Hmm.
can have bullet points written down,
Hmm.
sticky notes right on your
Yeah.
screen,
Yeah.
where you just have reminders and stuff like that,
Hmm.
which can be helpful. as long as it's not used as a complete crutch, and it's not like, well, I don't have to practice because now I can just write these
I'll just
bullets
sit and read this out loud.
Exactly. So I think there's a little bit more cheating you can do in
Mhm.
a virtual interview than in an in-person interview, but for the most part, I think they're pretty similar. Pretty
I,
similar.
I I thought I was a genius, and apparently everyone else knew it before me. But that happens a lot. I'm being able to like put your notes. I'm literally doing it for effect at this immediate moment, which is
Okay.
pull the information to the top of the camera so you'll be able to see it better. It's not a perfect world, as you said. That it's
Yeah.
like you should actually know the stuff.
Yes.
Um,
Right.
in terms of well, it's different now, and blah, blah, and you're saying, well, it's not really necessarily so, and
Yeah.
that things have remained the most similar. What would be to you the most if you're like, all right, I got an interview tomorrow afternoon, and it's like short-term stuff. Can you come in tomorrow at 10 a.m.? And you're like, oh my God, I've got to have 10 power stories ready, and
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
to, what would you just say? What would you know? Just
Yeah.
at the very least do X.
Yeah. If someone has a real last minute interview, they don't feel like they're prepared, they don't have a lot of time to prepare.
Right.
I would say read the job description.
Mm-hmm.
I would say come up with an introductory opening statement
Mm-hmm.
that talks about your experiences and
Mm-hmm.
how they apply to the job,
Right.
and then talk about and also talks about why you're so interested in the job,
Mm-hmm.
and then be ready to, think about the most common questions that you might get asked. Tell me about a time when,
Mm-hmm.
be
Mm-hmm.
ready
Mm-hmm.
to answer a couple behavioral questions based
Got it.
on what the top skills are in the job description.
Mm-hmm.
And then be ready to answer maybe some other basic like questions like, how would you approach your first 90 days on the job, or why do you think you should work here, or why do you think you're great.
Mm-hmm.
If you know going in, these are the skills I bring that are applicable to this job, and this is why I want the job, and you can clearly articulate that, I think you're in a good spot. It's no replacement for like
No.
genuine preparation. Someone says I have an interview tomorrow, and I say, well, that's too bad, a little bit, because you could have just, because then what happens, and this is what's hard to see, is then they don't get it, and then the regret comes, like, oh, I should have prepared more, and
Oh,
but
sure.
I definitely think it's worth. I don't think you just, if it's 24 hours away, you throw up your hands and there's nothing you can do. I
Mm-hmm.
definitely think there are things you can do
Mm-hmm.
to still do well in an interview on short notice.
Right, but you find that most of the time that's not it. Meaning
Yes,
most of the time people are not throwing out random sudden interviews. Like you
that's
know what I
right.
mean, which is nice. It's like so it's I would think the best takeaway here is that just optimize your time because typically you've
Yes,
got more than 10 minutes
that's
to
right.
to run into
You
the
do.
office.
Yeah, it's just like anything else,
Mhm.
it's preparation.
Right.
Preparation wins. And that's the thing that I is
Mhm.
sometimes people going into an interview,
Yeah.
they think, well, if I do fine, I'll get the job.
Mhm.
And what they don't realize that it's actually a competition.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
even if you do great, you might not get the job. The only way you do get the job is if you do the best versus anyone else. That's
Mhm.
that's in fact how you get the job. It's like, well, this person interviewed the best out of
Mhm.
all the competition. Now, if the competition's terrible and you do fine, maybe you'll get it.
You
But
still
that's the
did
only
the
guarantee.
best.
Yeah, the best. The only guarantee is that you did the best.
Mhm.
That's the guarantee. Even if you
Yeah.
did excellent, you did awesome,
Mhm.
you did, that's all not a guarantee that you'll
Mhm.
get the job.
So I was going to ask you before, and I'll end with this at this moment, which is this. I was starting to say a while back, like, how would you coach your son who's about ready to go on a mission? And I wonder, is there things that you've learned from the career base, the career talk, the books, that your corporate life, and all that sort of thing that in also apply to like when you were talking to your kids? You got a
Yeah.
17-year-old that's getting ready or considering going on a mission. What is
Yeah.
it that you would coach your kids,
Him
coach
on.
them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot. When it comes to um, jobs,
Hmm.
going to work and stuff like that.
Right.
I'll talk about. I'll say, look, let me tell you how employers think.
Hmm.
You know, um, employers will, if you do go in there and just do exactly what's asked of you, the employer will think, great, yeah, Max is my son. Max doing a great job. Um, if you go in there and you're always looking for extra things you can do, you're always proactively trying to do extra stuff, they'll think, okay, great, Max is my guy. Like now I can count on him, right? And so when you're wanting to get hours and you're feeling like, oh man, why am I not getting staffed? Why is this other person getting staffed? It's not because they don't like you. It's just because maybe someone else is just going the extra mile and just making it happen. And so we talk about that. We talk about there's this funny story. He went and interviewed once at Chick-fil-A and wasn't prepared. Shame on me. I'm an interview coach, but he wasn't really prepared, wasn't dressed, the way he should have been. But then he had an interview with Dick's coming up, and I said, "All right, let's talk." And we got him super prepared. And funny enough, of course, Dick's he showed up and they said, "Oh, good, you got the job. You showed up, you got the job." So he didn't even need it. But the point was, okay, anytime you have an interview, let's prepare and let's get ready. And so I think he understands that now. He's taken that to heart to a degree. And sometimes you teach teenagers things and it just you feel like they don't listen at all. But I think when they get into their 20s and they're actually trying to make it in the world, I think those lessons actually they can draw from, and they can start to see, oh yeah, I understand now what Dad was talking about.
I love that. So I'll use the example that you just shared, meaning it's like your child and they're 17 and maybe in their 20s. Here's what I was going to ask you, which is, so often now people want to express their individuality, and sometimes that gets like lapped into the category of authenticity, which to me is great. To me, it's like what I've come to learn is the thing that I was so guarded about was one of my bigger mistakes. Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, like in job interviews.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I kind of look at it, at least on a personal level, is there's plenty of opportunity for me to express my individuality after I have the job.
Okay.
Some people, like a job interview dress is an interesting example.
Yeah. You just put up a post about that.
Yeah, like look, just dressed how you think they want you to dress for the interview. I mean, some people think that's a violation of their identity. It's like, well, it's like, look, the employer is not a terrible employer if they're leery about the sweat shorts you wore in your interview. Like, sorry. I mean, and so this is the exact point I was making earlier, which is I'm not in the business of telling people it's okay to wear sweat shorts to a job interview. I'm in the business of I'd like to help you get a job.
Right.
And so here's how I would approach it. And I'm not saying this is right. I'm not saying, this or that. I'm just saying, here's the way they think, and here's how you can actually get a job. So I think, expressing individuality is great. And I think diversity of opinions and ideas is critical to successful organizations. But I also think that there are things that people call individuality, which really are kind of things that annoy people or encroach on other people's, like
I'm just being honest.
I'm gonna cook fish every day at work. Don't cramp my individuality. Well, it's like, what? You're offending half the office. So there is a little bit of like this balance, and I don't know, it's hard to know exactly where the line is. But I think really successful people do have a sense of tolerance and accommodating other people to a degree, and recognizing when maybe their point of view is a little bit overbearing, and abrasive. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there is a balance there, and that sometimes comes through painful learning a little bit. It's tough. You don't want to be so conformist that you're not, contributing your ideas, and you're not, expressing who you are and all that stuff. But like, there's this whole concept of bring your whole self to work. And I'm kind of like, look, I get kind of what it's saying, but I'm also like, well, the whole self, like, should I bring the self that was, eating potato chips, watching TV last night, or like, yelling at my kids? Like, No, like I think you should bring your best self. Bring your best self to work. Your
Rolled
best
up in a
self.
blanket, sad because you feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Like I want to bring my best self to work. And
Mhm,
I think employers want employees to bring their best selves to work.
mhm,
And that includes, you know, their differences of ideas and stuff
mhm,
like that.
mhm.
But whole self is an interesting concept that I think sometimes can get people a little bit sideways.
I've stolen most of my own questions, literally from posts that I've seen from you. And one of the things I want to just acknowledge you make things really fun and easy, covering what is often considered boring or a
Mm,
drag or an infringement of my skills and rights of a person. I don't feel like doing all this. I
yeah.
just want to show up. I
Yeah.
love the fact that you make it seem and sound so achievable and doable. And
Mm,
I acknowledge you for that, man. Like I said again, it's like you've been such a fun follow for me, and even all the more fun that you've shown up for me today. So first
thanks,
off,
John.
Sam, thank you for being here. Now, I know where to find you on LinkedIn, folks. You'll have the LinkedIn profile as you are listening and or watching. Sam's career talk, like I said again, is a big must follow. Sam, where would be the best way if we're going to
Yeah.
send people?
LinkedIn's great. I'm on TikTok. I'd say samscareertalk.com
Mhm.
is my website. You can sign up for my email. I have a weekly email list where I give just like career tips and stuff like
Yep.
that. So I'd say LinkedIn or the website, samscareertalk.com.
I love it. Sam Owens, thanks so much for showing up for me today, man. I really
Thanks a lot, John.
dig
Yeah,
it.
great talking to you.
Absolutely a pleasure. Folks, you just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Keep listening, watching, sharing, and we will keep driving more authentic content through your front door. John Duffin here, Duffin Media. Have a great rest of the day, folks, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.